Hello, everybody. It's Austin Opperman here. I'm going to talk about the strategy that I decided to do my presentation on, and that is reflection. The reason why I chose reflection for this project is because, one, personal experience in life as a student K through 12, I reflected a lot more than I ever realized. Now that I look back and think on it, reflection was something I did after every class, after every writing assignment, every reading assignment to make myself better, to try to figure out how I've learned and what I've learned, and see how I could better myself and become a master of what it is that we were learning. Now that I'm an education major, I use reflection every single day. I use it to reflect on lesson plans, um, teaching ideas, classroom management, so that I can not only better myself, but better myself for my students. And I know the way I've used it in my personal experiences through coaching. I coach high school baseball and basketball, and I reflect after every practice on how I think it went, what I could have done better, what we could have done better. Game plans, I reflect after every game, think on what I should have done, how I could have done things differently. Another reason why I chose this is because it has so many different applications. As I just spoke on, reflection is something that students won't just use in the classroom. Reflection to me is so invaluable because it's something that they will use every day in their lives. They will reflect on situations and events that occur in their life, and they will be able to try to become better after them. It's not only something that they'll use in the classroom. It's important to students. This comes down to the classroom. When you think of reflection in the classroom, this allows students to dive deeper into what they're learning and even dive deeper to themselves. It allows them to a little bit of self exploration into their learning and how they learn, and finally, how powerful it can be. Reflection as a tool is beyond powerful. It's really invaluable because of the fact that it allows students so many different ways to reflect and think on themselves as learners and what they've learned. What is reflection? Well, reflection is about students becoming aware of their own thinking processes and being able to make those transparent to others. It enables assessment of the why and how of the learning and what needs to be done as a result. I do want to take a second to think on that definition from my perspective as a history teacher. To me, it's invaluable that students are able to become aware of their own thinking processes because once a student learns why they think that the way that they do and how they learn, once they learn those couple of things, students are able to then think critically and become purposeful thinkers. They will start to attack readings and writings and historical documents and historical dates and people and events with purpose and thought. And for history, a lot of students is, well, frankly, it's boring. A lot of students find it to be nothing but dates and old people. And for a lot of students, that's not really engaging. But if you can teach it and you can get your students to reflect and think of why did this event happen? Why is there this emotional attachment to this person? Why did we go about this the way that we did? Or how could we have handled that event differently? How could it have been stopped? How has it affected my life and the future of this planet? You know, that allows for students to become engaged and it allows them to really start to think deeper and broader. And that to me is why reflection is so important. There is a challenge, though, to reflection, and that is students reflect in a multitude of ways. And it's not necessarily that their strategies are different because a lot of students are going to take the same couple strategies to reflection or whatever strategy you give them as an educator, and they'll use that to reflect. But it's more along the lines of the opinions that they come to and the different things and the ways that they think. No two students are going to take the same event and have the same perspective. So as an educator, you're going to have to find a way to get a strategy that allows for all students to use and it will encompass all those different opinions and perspectives. Next, I have my activity for you guys, and that's the key event journal. So basically, all this is I would have my students at the beginning of each school year buy a composition notebook or some other type of notebook that they could keep a journal in. So the first step is before each chapter, I will give the students a list of key events from throughout the chapter. They're not going to do anything with these events yet, but they're just going to hold on to that piece of paper. The second step is as we go through the chapter, When we get to one of the key events, the students are simply just going to write them into their journal and they're going to mark them off the piece of paper. That's it. Maybe they could put a brief definition that I give them, or maybe a date or why this happened or where this happened or whatever they find to be important at the time. Step three is at the end of each chapter, I'm going to have my students revisit those key events that they wrote into their journals, and I want them to reflect on those. But I don't want them to use the words that I gave them. I don't want them to use my definitions or why I said that they're important. I want them to give it to me in their own words. I want them to tell me how they thought, how they felt, what maybe they thought could have been done differently, etc. I want students to be able to really dig deep into these events, and I really want to hear what they thought and how they thought and what they felt. Um, Step four is the students will then be asked to share these reflective thoughts. As I spoke on in one of the previous slides, it's really important the students are transparent with their thinking processes. So allowing for these students to share their thoughts with the class, one, allows students to continue to be transparent, and it allows them to bounce ideas off of me, but it also allows for them to bounce off ideas off their classmates, and that inspires and allows for in-depth class discussion. And for me as a teacher, in-class discussion is one of my favorite ways for students to learn, because students can learn a lot from their peers, and a lot of good ideas a lot of students have can be bounced back and forth, and that generates such good discussion. And that's such an important thing to have in your classroom. All right, so what's so good about reflection anyway? Well, here are the benefits. It allows the learner to think on what they have learned and how they learned it. This is going back to that definition of reflection I gave you guys a couple slides ago, and the importance of students being able to understand their thinking processes. Once a student understands why and how they learn, a student's ability to start thinking critically and thinking with purpose is going to come full circle for them. And reflection is one of the ways that they can learn to do that. Reflection allows students to go back and think on why they learned what they did and how they learned what they did. Reflection also allows for self-exploration. When students go back and they think about why they felt the way that they did, or why they learned something the way they did, or how they learned it, or how they felt, or how they thought like that, or whatever the case may be, the more students learn about themselves, they're going to become better students because they're going to better know themselves and how they learn. It also allows for students to connect to what they are learning. As a history teacher, I said previously it's so important that students are able to find ways to connect. And when students go back and they reflect, it allows for that time for them to go back and connect to those dates or those people in the past. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope it was informative and helpful. Everybody stay safe.